Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Jeremy's hands trembled as he answered Nora's ringing phone. She'd left it behind. "Hello?" he asked. The voice on the other end froze him. "Nora? It's Gerald. Are we still on for tomorrow, or did something come up? Let me know, babe." The call ended with a beep, leaving Jeremy staring at the phone, his world tilting. "Babe?" The word echoed, unraveling everything he thought he knew about his wife. He looked toward their bedroom, where she'd stormed off earlier, clueless about the storm brewing. Was this the truth, or just another twisted thread in her web of secrets? Chapter 1. The humdrum life of Brentwood Falls rarely produced thrilling headlines. The local diner's biggest gossip usually revolved around how old Mr. Martin's cows kept wandering onto the highway. Jeremy Haynes, age 35, a construction supervisor, never imagined his life would become front-page news. But that was before he walked into a tiny gas station at the edge of town to buy a lottery ticket for the sake of good luck tradition, as suggested by his beloved mother, Sadie. On a drizzly Friday evening, Jeremy's friends gathered in the Lazy Oak Tavern to celebrate the impossible. Jeremy had won a state lottery worth $78 million. For a town this small, it might as well have been $1 billion. Usually modest, wearing dusty work boots and well-worn jeans, Jeremy found himself the center of attention he never asked for. He was a tall man with honest brown eyes, broad shoulders, and a steady calm in his demeanor, known as hard-working, loyal, and the type you call first if your car breaks down at midnight. His mother, Sadie, pushing 60 but spirited, was the one who had insisted. "I have a feeling, Gerbert. Buy me a ticket in my name." He complied. The improbable result: a jackpot that changed their lives overnight. Perched at his side in the tavern was Nora Haynes, his wife of 8 years, who turned heads with her sleek hair, designer top, and meticulously manicured nails. Many in Brentwood Falls quietly wondered how the practical Jeremy had ended up with someone like Nora, who clearly yearned for more glamorous surroundings. Indeed, she seldom hid her dissatisfaction with small-town life. "We deserve better," she'd say. That evening, Nora's excitement was palpable, but her eyes sparkled less with warmth and more with a frantic anticipation. She pressed tight to Jeremy's arm, occasionally whispering grand ideas for houses, cars, vacations. Some onlookers, particularly Jeremy's best friend Keith Langston, sensed something off in her tone, like she was already making a mental spending spree. Keith, a jovial, bearded man, worked alongside Jeremy in construction. He teased, "Better not forget us, little guys." Jeremy flashed a friendly grin, clapping Keith on the shoulder. "We're all going to share in the fun, buddy." As the rowdy group toasted Jeremy, the tavern door swung open, letting in a burst of wind. In walked Gerald Burton, dressed more like a city developer than a local farmhand. Sharp suit, polished shoes, immediately drawing eyes. The tension in the bar rose. Gerald was known regionally as a cunning real estate investor. He had a reputation for flipping farmland into high-priced subdivisions, often leaving local families feeling swindled. Gerald, 40-ish, exuded confidence. He approached Jeremy with a wide smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Heard the great news, Jeremy." "My congratulations," Gerald declared, hand extended. "If you're looking to invest your newfound fortune, I'm your man. My firm's doing some exciting projects." Nora's gaze flicked to Gerald, lingering in a way that made Keith's stomach clench. Jeremy simply responded politely, "Appreciate it, but I've got plans with my mother first." We see the first flicker of unspoken tension, Nora noticing Gerald and a faint spark that portends trouble. Jeremy shrugged off any warnings from Keith. "Hey, man, I can handle myself. Nora's just excited. And Gerald, he's just a business guy. I'm not naive. But Keith remained uneasy. Nora's eyes kept drifting to her phone, which pinged occasionally with messages. Jeremy was preoccupied with well-wishers patting his back, oblivious to the subtle shift in Nora's posture. In a quieter moment, Nora slipped away to the restroom. Keith noticed she wasn't heading toward the bar's restrooms at all, but rather stepping outside into the chilly night, phone pressed to her ear. Suspicion prickled, but he decided not to confront her yet. As the night wore on, Jeremy insisted on one final toast. To my mom, Sadie, my lucky charm. She had the hunch that changed our lives, let's not forget that. Everyone cheered, draining their glasses. Jeremy found Nora's eyes for a moment, her forced smile overshadowed by something sharper. But in the celebratory haze, he chalked it up to her unstoppable excitement for the finer things. Leaving the tavern late, Keith parted ways, urging Jeremy to watch his back. Money changes folks, Keith warned, especially folks who were never content in the first place. Jeremy didn't let the caution dampen his mood. He was on cloud nine, basking in dreams of helping his mother retire, paying off Keith's mortgage, maybe traveling with Nora on a simple, honest adventure. Once home, an argument flared. Nora demanded they start house hunting in a major city. Jeremy insisted on staying in Brentwood Falls, at least for Sadie's sake, and just renovating. It's our home, he said. She huffed, I deserve more. The standoff ended with Nora storming off to bed. Jeremy remained in the living room, confusion gnawing at him. Chapter 2. Over the next week, calls and visitors bombarded Jeremy. Everyone wanted a piece of the lottery winner. Old acquaintances, local charities, distant cousins. Among them, Gerald Burton showed up unannounced at Jeremy's modest home one afternoon. Jeremy, in his usual worn jeans, answered the door. Gerald, right? Gerald smiled broadly, handing Jeremy a glossy brochure. I want you to see what the possibilities are if you invest. My firm has cutting-edge real estate developments. We can flip your fortune into an empire. Jeremy skimmed the brochure politely but with caution. I'm not sure I want an empire, just something that benefits the local folks. Nora, wearing a stylish outfit too fancy for Brentwood's dusty roads, appeared behind Jeremy. She greeted Gerald with warmth that Keith, who happened to be visiting, found unsettling. Let's not dismiss him so quickly, Jeremy. We owe it to ourselves to explore all options. She flashed a bright smile at Gerald, who returned it. Keith, leaning against the kitchen doorway, stared at the three. Tension hung in the air. Gerald had a polished sales pitch, Nora had an eager interest, and Jeremy was uncertain. After a polite but firm, I'll think about it, Jeremy ushered Gerald out. Walking away, Gerald gave Nora a parting glance that didn't escape Keith's notice. Gerald slyly slips his personal contact details to Nora, who discreetly pockets them with a faint smirk, unbeknownst to Jeremy. Later that day, Keith confronted Jeremy in the backyard, where Jeremy tinkered with an old tractor. That Gerald guy is trouble, man. He's got a reputation for sweet-talking clients, milking them for investments, then ghosting once things go sour. Jeremy wiped grease from his hands, shrugging. I'm aware. But maybe Nora's right. We owe it to ourselves to at least see what's out there. You've also got your mother, Sadie. She's priority one, right? Didn't you plan to build her a new place? Yeah, that's definitely happening, Jeremy said. No matter what. Mom comes first. Keith studied his friend's earnest face. Just don't let Nora and Gerald steer you away from that. Jeremy forced a grin. Don't worry, I can handle it. At Sadie's cozy little cottage, the atmosphere was drastically different. She insisted on continuing her job at the local florist, claiming, It keeps me young. When Jeremy visited to discuss plans for her new dream home, she simply said, "I'm happy with what I have, son. You know me just want a small garden and a porch." But she sensed Jeremy's restlessness. "Nora pushing fancy stuff, huh?" Sadie asked, with a gentle twinkle in her eye. Jeremy chuckled. "You know her. She wants the best." Sadie patted his hand. "Just remember, money can buy a house, not a home. Keep your priorities in line, Jer." Enter Ellie Fitzgerald, a friend of the Haynes family and practically an adopted sister to Jeremy. She'd grown up with them, shared babysitting chores, and always had a knack for reading people. Ellie worked at the local library, known for her warm heart but sharp intuition. One afternoon, Ellie met Jeremy for coffee. "So you're a millionaire now," she teased. "How's that feel?" "Surreal," Jeremy admitted, stirring his cup. "But mostly I want to do good with it, you know? Not just personal gain." Ellie nodded, reading between the lines. "And Nora wants something else?" He sighed. "We're at odds. She's not a bad person, she's just had bigger dreams than this small town. Now the money's here, she sees the chance." Ellie leaned in gently. "Be sure her dreams align with your well-being. Money reveals truth, Jer. Don't ignore what it shows." Within weeks, Nora had turned her social media into a highlight reel of new possibilities. Luxury homes in the city, dinner at upscale restaurants, where she dragged Jeremy along, though he often felt out of place. She posted pictures, hashtags about big city dreams, and dropped subtle hints of them, moving on from Brentwood Falls. Sadie, seeing these posts, shot Jeremy a concerned text. "Is Nora planning to relocate? Are we losing you?" Jeremy quickly reassured her that was just talk. Privately, Nora confronted Jeremy. "I need you to take these calls from city realtors. Do you realize the potential? We can't stay stuck in farmland life." He stood firm. "We'll see what's feasible. But I'm not abandoning my mother. Period." That ended the conversation for the night, but left Nora simmering. One day, Jeremy caved to Nora's pressure and met Gerald for a friendly lunch. The restaurant was upscale relative to Brentwood Falls norms. The smell of freshly seared salmon clashed with Jeremy's memory of simpler diner meals. Gerald arrived with a portfolio of properties, talking up big investments, big returns. "If you let me manage half your fortune, we'll double it in a year," Gerald boasted. "City expansions, prime commercial real estate, these deals are gold." Jeremy frowned. "I'm not chasing some quick flip, Gerald. I want stable, honest investments." Gerald's grin stayed plastered on. "Of course. We'll be fully above board. The potential here is enormous, and Nora sees that as well." Jeremy's stomach twisted at the mention of Nora. Since when is she discussing investments privately with Gerald? During lunch, Gerald lets slip that he's happy to keep Nora in the loop, hinting they've already had conversations about these expansions. Jeremy's suspicion rises. Without warning Jeremy, Nora scheduled a high-end realtor from the city, Sadie Wilson, coincidentally named Sadie, not to be confused with Jeremy's mother. This realtor arrived with brochures for million-dollar mansions hours away from Brentwood Falls. Jeremy was blindsided to find them flipping through glossy images on the living room couch. "What's going on here?" Jeremy asked, tension crackling. Nora, slightly defensive. "We're exploring. With the money, we can afford a real place, Jer. Not this outdated house next to farmland." The realtor sensed the awkward vibe but pressed forward, praising the dreamlike open concept and gated community exclusivity. Jeremy shook his head. "We never agreed to move out of Brentwood Falls." Nora retorted. "Well, I never agreed to stay cooped up in a town with one grocery store. We have a chance at a bigger life and you're ignoring it." The argument escalated. Jeremy demanded the realtor leave. Furious, Nora retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door. He sat alone, blindsided and hurt, rereading a message from Sadie. Don't forget. Family first. Chapter 3. At the local construction site where Jeremy still showed up to supervise, Keith cornered him by the supply trailer. Heard Nora's meeting realtors from the city. That true? Jeremy nodded grimly. She blindsided me. Gerald's behind this, guaranteed, Keith muttered. He's whispering big city fantasies in her ear. You sure she's not, watch for signs of something more than business. Jeremy forced a confident reply. Nora wouldn't do that. She's a bit starstruck by the money, but she's my wife. Yet a flicker of doubt shadowed his eyes. We've got issues, sure, but I trust her. Keith sighed, patting Jeremy's shoulder. Just keep your guard up. I'm serious. Sensing the tension, Ellie invited Nora for coffee, hoping a girls' talk might calm the friction. The local cafe was a cozy spot. Warm baked bread smells, small-town chatter in the background. Nora arrived in high heels and a stylish coat that turned heads among the farmers, sipping black coffee. Ellie, in her simple cardigan, got straight to the point. Nora, I see the stress building with Jeremy. This lottery changed everything. But you two need unity, not division. Nora sipped her latte, eyes flicking around as if bored. Jeremy refuses to see the bigger picture. We could have a far better lifestyle. My father always told me to aim high. Now that we can, jeers clinging to farmland and a mother who doesn't even want a new house. Ellie gently argued. But that's his mother's dream. Not to mention his own dream to improve Brentwood Falls. You married him, not a checkbook. Nora stiffened. Don't lecture me, Ellie. We can't all be small-town librarians. Some of us want more. A beat of silence, thick with tension. Ellie swallowed her frustration. Fine. Just be honest with Jeremy, not sneaking around with realtors. And watch out for Gerald. He's unscrupulous. Nora rolled her eyes. You're all so paranoid. Gerald's a professional, nothing more. She checked her phone for messages. Ellie saw the screen. Dinner at 7? Gerald. Another wave of alarm. Ellie glimpses that text and realizes Nora may be meeting Gerald secretly for more than business. The seeds of betrayal intensify. That evening, Jeremy tried to have a quiet dinner with Nora takeout burgers, an attempt at normalcy. She barely touched her food, glancing repeatedly at her phone. Got somewhere to be? Jeremy teased, half joking. She forced a smile. Just a friend from out of town. Might meet them for a drink. Don't wait up. He frowned, but let it pass. Late that night, a call startled Jeremy from dozing on the couch. He grabbed his phone, but realized it was Nora's phone, ringing in the bedroom. She'd left it behind. Reluctant, he answered. Hello? A pause. Then, Nora? It's me, Gerald. Are we still on for tomorrow, or did something come up? Let me know, babe. The beep ended. Jeremy stared at the phone in his hand, adrenaline spiking. Babe? Nora returned past midnight, claiming she met old college friends. Jeremy confronted her, voice trembling with hurt. Gerald called you babe. She froze, then laughed lightly. He jokes, that's all. We're just discussing investments. Stop overreacting. He stormed outside, frustration boiling. The starlit sky felt both freeing and suffocating. Could she be lying? Or is it just a misunderstanding? The next morning, he confided in Sadie. Mom, I think maybe Nora's seeing Gerald behind my back. Sadie's face creased with concern. I had a feeling. She's distant, Jer. What do I do? He asked, voice raw. Sadie sighed. Don't let it fester. If she's truly crossing lines, you must address it directly. Don't be a doormat, my son. Despite the tension, Nora insisted Jeremy accompany her to a quick house viewing in the city, claiming it was merely for perspective. He relented, wanting to keep lines of communication open. They arrived at a gated estate. Gerald greeted them personally, keys in hand. Inside, the mansion was extravagantly furnished. Nora's eyes shone with excitement. Meanwhile, Jeremy felt cold dread. The price tag soared into millions. "This is insane," he muttered. Gerald brushed him off. "With your lottery winnings, this is well within reach, Jeremy." He tried to appeal to Jeremy's sense of pride. "Imagine hosting your mother here. She'd love the gardens." Jeremy shook his head. "My mother loves her quiet little home, not this palace." Nora frowned. "We can't always do things your mother's way." As they toured the house, Jeremy saw how easily Nora chatted with Gerald, inside jokes, shared glances. His chest tightened. In a private moment, Gerald cornered Jeremy. "Look, if you're not ready to buy big, that's fine. But Nora's tastes go beyond farmland life. If you can't provide it, well, someone else might." The veiled threat left Jeremy speechless. Gerald's direct challenge to Jeremy's manhood. The seeds of rage begin to sprout within the husband, who realizes this is no innocent flirtation. The betrayal is building. One weekend, Keith needed to drop off building materials at a city-based supply store. By sheer chance, he spotted Nora and Gerald entering a fancy boutique together, arms linked. They weren't looking around for real estate. They were laughing intimately. Keith, alarmed, snapped a couple of photos from a distance. Nora's hand was on Gerald's chest, an unmistakably affectionate gesture. Shaken, Keith rushed back, showing the photos to Jeremy. "Look at this. They're together. No mention of a house viewing, no business meeting." Jeremy stared at the images, face draining of color. "It's real," he whispered. "She's with him, cheating." Keith gripped his friend's shoulder. "I'm sorry, but we had to find out. Now you know." Furious tears burned at the edges of Jeremy's eyes, but he forced them back. "I was a fool," he growled. "Now, it's time I do something about it." Chapter 4. Back at home, Jeremy's confrontation with Nora was explosive. He confronted her with Keith's photos. "You lied to me, Nora. This isn't about houses or expansions. You're having an affair with Gerald." Nora's initial reaction was indignation. "How dare you spy on me? Keith had no right. Answer me!" Jeremy roared, uncharacteristic fury boiling over. "Are you with him or not?" She stared at him, a mix of anger and shame. "Yes," she finally hissed. "And so what? You think I'm going to stay stuck in your slow-paced existence? Gerald can offer me real wealth, real status." Jeremy's voice broke. "We had wealth, my mother's lottery. The possibilities, why betray me for him?" She flung her arms up. "Because you refuse to dream bigger. All you want is to fix up your mother's place and play small-town hero. I want the world at my feet." A stunned silence. Then Jeremy quietly said, "If that's how you feel, then we're done. I'll talk to a lawyer." Nora's eyes narrowed. "Good luck. I'll ensure half the lottery is mine. A court will see me as your spouse with legal rights." The mention that the ticket is in Sadie's name hits Nora's fury as she realizes the potential legal complexities. She storms out, vowing to meet Gerald to plan a strategy for seizing half the money anyway. Jeremy retreated to Sadie's home, broken. She welcomed him into the living room with open arms. "I suspected it, but I prayed I was wrong," she said gently, handing him a cup of tea. "I'm sorry, my boy." "She admitted it, Mom," he said, voice shaky. "She wants half the lottery. She wants to drag us to court." Sadie set her cup down, eyes flashing. "She won't get a cent if I can help it. The ticket was in my name, remember? That complicates her claim." A spark of hope lit in Jeremy's eyes. "You're right. But then sorrow returned. She'll use everything some big-shot lawyer from the city. Gerald will back her. They'll find angles to twist the law. Sadie's gaze hardened with quiet determination. Let them try. We'll fight. But you also need to protect yourself. This isn't just about me or the ticket, it's about your future. Don't let your heartbreak blind you. She and that man will play dirty. At Sadie's insistence, Jeremy visited Margaret Clay, a seasoned local attorney with a reputation for fiercely guarding her clients' interests. Margaret greeted him in her cozy, book-lined office. Sadie's told me bits. The ticket is in her name makes the marital property angle tricky for your wife. Jeremy explained the timeline, the background, the betrayal. Margaret scribbled notes, eyes sharp behind reading glasses. Your mother purchased the ticket using her own funds or yours? I gave the clerk the money, but it was at Mom's request. She insisted it be put in her name. The store's security footage might confirm that. We also have the official papers with her name. Margaret nodded. If the court upholds it as your mother's separate asset, Nora can't claim half. She may try to argue you gifted the ticket. We'll need to demonstrate the original agreement. The ticket belongs to Sadie, not you. Meanwhile, you remain effectively not the lottery winner. Nora's marital claim to your finances is smaller than she thinks. Jeremy exhaled relief. Thank God. But what about the property we started upgrading and the new truck I bought? Margaret gave a small smile. We can handle that. The main threat is if Nora tries to prove you commingled the lottery funds into marital property. So from now on, be extremely careful with every purchase and transaction. Keep it separate. He frowned. What if she and Gerald do more cunning moves? Margaret's eyes steeled. Then we respond in kind, legally but decisively. If they want war, we won't cower. Outside Margaret's office, Keith and Ellie waited anxiously. Jeremy emerged, looking more focused. We have a path forward. Mom is the official winner, so Nora's claim might be weaker. But we must gather rock-solid evidence if they attempt to smear me or claim I transferred money to them. Ellie nodded. Count us in. We'll help in any way. Keith added, You want me to keep an eye on them? I can tail Nora if needed. See if she's meeting Gerald. Jeremy hesitated, not wanting to be consumed by vengeance, but Margaret's advice about needing evidence echoed in his mind. Yes, he agreed, but do it discreetly. I want to keep this legal. No harassing them, no vigilantism. Meanwhile, Nora and Gerald convened at a swanky hotel suite in the city. She paced in frustration while Gerald sat calmly, swirling whiskey in a tumbler. He's on to us, and that old lady is a bigger problem. The ticket's in her name, apparently, Nora hissed. Gerald frowned. So, if the court recognizes it as Sadie's property, you get nothing from the lottery, just partial rights to your marital home, etc. She sank onto the plush sofa. That's unacceptable. I won't walk away empty-handed. Gerald exhaled. Then we need a new plan. Maybe we claim that Jeremy explicitly told everyone it was his ticket, that Sadie's name was just for show. If we produce some witnesses, or discredit the mother somehow, the judge might rule the money is communal. Or we find skeletons in Jeremy's closet. Everyone has secrets. Gerald reveals he has contacts who can forge or manipulate old documents, possibly making it appear that Jeremy had integrated the lottery funds into marital property. Nora's eyes light up with unscrupulous glee. They decided to gather false statements from some acquaintances who might be bribed to say Jeremy always bragged about my lottery, or that he co-deposited the winnings into a joint account. We can blur the lines, Gerald insisted. No direct link to me. Our attorneys will do the heavy lifting. In a sudden turn, Sadie collapsed one day while tending her garden. Jeremy, rushing over, found her pale and weak. Doctors diagnosed it as mild heart trouble, stress-induced, possibly. She needed rest, Lying in the hospital bed, Sadie told Jeremy, "Don't let me be the reason you can't move on with your life. If you must separate finances or travel, do it. I can handle myself, child." Tears in Jeremy's eyes. "I can't lose you, Mom. You're the only reason I'm not going insane. We'll get through this. I promise." The scare deepened Jeremy's resolve. He realized how precious time was, how he needed to protect her from legal battles. If Nora and Gerald attacked more viciously, the strain could worsen Sadie's condition. Shortly after Sadie's hospitalization, Margaret called Jeremy with alarming news. "Nora's lawyer just sent us evidence of your finances. They claim you merged the lottery money with your personal account last month, effectively making it marital property. The documents look suspicious, but we need to confirm if they're forged." Jeremy's fury flared. "I never deposited anything in that joint account. That's a lie." Margaret sounded grim. "Yes, but it's well faked. We'll need bank statements from the actual bank to disprove it, or we show the raw transaction logs. I also suspect they'll produce witnesses who claim you told them the ticket was basically yours, not Sadie's." Margaret reveals that one of the witnesses is an old acquaintance who once owed Jeremy a favor, but now might be bribed by Gerald. The betrayal cuts deep. Night fell, and Jeremy huddled with Keith, Ellie, and Margaret in Sadie's living room. The father was dozing in the next room, ensuring minimal stress on her. They laid out the false documents, the real evidence from the bank, recordings of Nora's confessions, plus a plan to systematically dismantle Gerald's and Nora's attempts. Margaret will gather official bank statements proving no lottery funds were commingled. Keith will investigate the bribed acquaintances, record any suspicious phone calls or transactions. Ellie will keep an ear to local rumors, help keep Sadie's stress low. Jeremy, with Margaret's guidance, will prepare a meticulously legal trap, show the court that not only are the documents false, but also that Gerald and Nora engaged in fraud, further damaging Nora's credibility in any divorce settlement. In that meeting, Jeremy's gaze turned steely. "They want to play dirty? Fine. We'll play smarter by the book. I'm done being the naive husband." The shift in Jeremy's demeanor was palpable. Heartbreak had turned to cold determination. Just as they solidified their plan, a knock on Sadie's front door revealed a Detective Sam Fuller from the county's fraud division. He introduced himself politely. "I'm investigating potential financial irregularities around the lottery. Some allegations popped up about forgeries, unregistered funds, and bribed witnesses. Just want to ensure everything is on the level." The group exchanged glances. Margaret stepped up. "We're cooperating fully, Detective. My client, Jeremy, is the legitimate son of Sadie, the rightful lottery winner. We suspect the real forgeries are from the other side." Fuller nodded. "Wouldn't be the first time. I'd appreciate any documents you can share. And if you see or suspect anything illegal, call me." He left his card, eyes lingering on Jeremy. "I've seen honest folks get swindled by cunning outsiders. Don't let them catch you unprepared." Jeremy nodded, quietly appreciating that not everyone in law enforcement was an obstacle. The introduction of Detective Fuller hints at a larger legal tangle, but also an ally if Jeremy remains lawful. As Part 1 neared its conclusion, a swirl of tension rose. Gerald and Nora's camp prepared false witnesses, forging bank statements, and rumored attempts to sabotage Jeremy's credibility. Meanwhile, Jeremy and his allies built a fortress of real evidence, collecting official bank logs, verifying every transaction, contacting the store's security footage that captured Sadie's lottery purchase. Sadie was stable but needed calm. The slightest stress could trigger another episode. One late evening, Jeremy found an envelope slid under his door. He opened it to find candid photos of Sadie's routine shopping, visiting the hospital, alone at her cottage. A note scrawled Mayne. We can reach your mother any time. Sign over half or watch her suffer. The threat was menacing. Furious, Jeremy realized how far Gerald might go. He vowed to double security, telling Keith to keep watch near Sadie's place. "They threatening my mother! They cross a line!" Jeremy seethed. "I'll destroy them legally, thoroughly, no mercy." In a dark corner of the city, Nora ranted to Gerald, "We can't drag this out forever, or I might end up with nothing." Gerald sneered. "We up the pressure. If Jeremy wants to play nice, we'll force his hand. He'll break, or we ruin them." The camera panned across a desk strewn with forged paperwork, names of potential witnesses, and a menacing plan labeled Phase 2 Extort. Part 1 ends with the audience bracing for the full-blown war soon to erupt. The stage is set for betrayal, cunning legal maneuvers, potential threats to Sadie's well-being, and the unstoppable force of Jeremy's newly forged steel will to protect mother and home. Chapter 5. A somber morning, a renewed resolve. The sun rose on Brentwood Falls in a pale wash of color. For Jeremy Haynes, this new dawn felt neither hopeful nor serene. The final days of Part 1 had left him more determined than ever to shield his mother, Sadie, from the mounting pressures orchestrated by Nora and Gerald. He awoke early at his modest home, now eerily quiet, without Nora's presence. She had all but moved in with Gerald or spent nights in unknown city hotels. The legal storm was brewing from her side. Jeremy, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, downed a black coffee in his small kitchen. Keith stepped in, arms full of new depositions from Margaret Clay. "Morning, buddy. Got an early start, huh?" Jeremy looked up. "Barely slept. My phone's buzzing every hour, some false leads, demands from Nora's new lawyer." Their conversation drifted to Sadie's condition. Jeremy planned to visit her after meeting with Margaret. "Let's see if we can piece together more proof to torpedo those forged statements," Jeremy said, voice steeled. "I won't let them drag Mom through a humiliating trial." They arrived at Margaret's office, a cozy space crammed with case files. She greeted them with a firm handshake. "More developments? We've subpoenaed the official bank records. That should counter Nora's fake documents. But we suspect they might push for depositions that claim you openly referred to the lottery as ours, meaning yours and Nora's." She handed Jeremy a typed schedule of depositions and a list of potential hostile witnesses. Some names made Jeremy's heart sink, old acquaintances, folks who once seemed friendly. "Gerald's paying them off," Margaret predicted, "or promising them slices of future deals." Ellie showed up next, carrying a binder of her own. "I compiled social media evidence, Nora's posts, bragging about city life, moves she made on her own. It shows she was acting independent of Jeremy's consent, might help contradict her narrative." Keith chimed in. "And I've got logs from the store cameras where Sadie purchased the ticket. They confirm Sadie was the named customer. That's big." Margaret gestured to a whiteboard. "Let's systematically break down each false claim they might make." The four spent hours strategizing. Claim: Jeremy merged lottery funds into a joint account. Counter: official bank logs, plus security footage from the bank if needed. Claim: verbal statements Jeremy made about my lottery. Counter: show he was frequently misquoted or it was casual slang, but the legal ownership remained with Sadie. Claim: Nora's alimony demands. Counter: Nora's documented affair, her desertion, and evidence of wrongdoing could diminish or negate spousal support under the state's fault-based rules. Breaking from the strategy session, Jeremy hurried to the local hospital to greet Sadie upon her discharge. She seemed frail, but determined as she exited in a wheelchair, nodding politely to the nurse. Jeremy took the handles with care. "Ready to head home, Mom?" She mustered a brave smile. "Yes, let's get me back to my garden. Some fresh air does wonders." During the drive, Sadie quietly said, "I know you're knee-deep in ugly legal battles. Don't let hatred fester, Jer. Anger can become a poison." He blinked, gripping the wheel. "Mom, they threatened you in that anonymous note. They'll do anything to get money they're not entitled to." Her gaze softened. "I trust you to keep me safe, but also to keep yourself safe, your heart. Fight them, but don't stoop to evil." He nodded, a lump in his throat. He'd always been a kind man at heart. Now forced to wage war, he silently vowed to remain honorable. Across the city, at Gerald's slick downtown office, a very different scene played out. The sleek glass walls gave him a panoramic view of the metropolis he intended to dominate. This day, he had summoned half a dozen individuals: an old bartender from the Lazy Oak Tavern, a distant cousin of Jeremy's, a random co-worker from Jeremy's construction days, anyone who might sign an affidavit claiming they heard Jeremy call the winnings "my money" or "ours" as a married couple. Gerald sat behind his imposing desk, sliding envelopes of cash to these questionable characters. "Your statement must be unshakable," he emphasized, voice dripping with menace. "If the Haynes side tries to disprove you, stick to the story that Jeremy bragged he would share the lottery, that it was effectively his." The bartender, uneasy, asked, "But what if I get caught lying?" Gerald's glare silenced him. "You won't, if you're consistent. I pay good money for loyalty. Or do you prefer an enemy in me?" One of these coerced witnesses is a single mother who's desperate for the money yet feels guilt about lying. She might become a wild card later. Nora lingered in the corner, arms folded. She hated the greasy politics but wanted that big city life more than her conscience. "Just get it done," she snapped. "I'm sick of small steps. If we break Jeremy in court, I can finalize the divorce with a massive payout." Meanwhile, Jeremy responded to the threat letter about Sadie by hiring a small local security firm to patrol her cottage at night. One security guard, Craig Michaels, was an ex-cop who took the job seriously. He installed motion sensor lights, cameras around the perimeter, ensuring no suspicious activity near Sadie's property. One evening, Craig reported unusual sightings: an unmarked black SUV passing by multiple times. When the headlights flicked off near the back fence, Craig approached, but the vehicle sped away. He alerted Jeremy. "Could be nothing, or could be someone scoping out the place." Jeremy clenched his jaw. "No chance I ignore it. Double your watch." A crucial piece of the puzzle, Ellie put her librarian research skills to use. She quietly traveled to the county records office. Searching property deeds, business incorporation filings, she discovered a web of questionable shell companies tied to Gerald. Some were dissolved abruptly after suspicious real estate flips. Others used addresses of vacant lots. She also discovered lawsuits in other counties where Gerald was accused of fraudulent property deals, though he often settled out of court. Tucking copies of these records into a thick file, Ellie felt a surge of triumph. "This is how we prove Gerald's pattern of unethical behavior. Might help in discrediting him in Jeremy's divorce or any hush-hush deals." Ellie shared the documents with Margaret, who nodded thoughtfully. "This, combined with our other evidence, can depict Gerald as a con man. If the judge sees that Nora aligned herself with such a figure, it undermines her credibility." At the Brentwood Falls construction site, Jeremy's co-workers remained staunchly supportive. Many had known him since childhood. They offered to testify that Jeremy was always honest about the ticket being Sadie's. Some teased, "You never once said it was your personal fortune. Always my mom's big win. You made it clear you were just happy for her." This testimony could be pivotal in countering any false narratives. Keith insisted they gather sworn affidavits from the entire crew. "While Gerald bribes unscrupulous folk, we line up honest men who can't be bought." One of the alleged bribed witnesses tries to flip sides after hearing the truth from the loyal construction workers, leading to confusion in Gerald's camp. Out of the blue, Nora appeared at Jeremy's door one rainy afternoon, looking contrite. I made mistakes, Jer. We were so in love once. Can we talk? Skeptical, Jeremy led her inside. She talked about, maybe we rushed things with Gerald. Maybe I got swept up. But her eyes flicked around the living room as if searching for something. We could fix us if you recognize that living in a bigger place is beneficial. We meet halfway? Jeremy's heart pounded. Despite her betrayal, old feelings stirred, but he recalled the damaging evidence, the intimidation, the fake documents. I can't trust you, he said simply, voice strained. Not after everything. If you want real reconciliation, you'd have denounced Gerald's forgeries, threats, manipulations. She bristled. You're hopeless clinging to your saintly mother and farmland? Fine. She stomped out, but not before remarking, expect more legal letters soon. As she left, Jeremy realized that might have been a scheme to glean info from him, like how strong his legal defense was. With tensions boiling, Margaret scheduled depositions carefully. She had a surprise plan. Call the store clerk who sold the lottery ticket to Sadie. The clerk, an older woman named Darlene, had recalled how Sadie always joked about that money changing her life. Not Jared's. Darlene was willing to testify that Sadie purchased the ticket independently, with her own card. This could slam dunk the argument that it's Sadie's asset. But they needed the transaction receipts or credit card slip from that day, if it still existed. Ellie volunteered to help Darlene find old records. Diving into the store's archaic system, they discovered partial backups on an external drive. If they could match date-time logs to Sadie's credit card ending in 6521, it'd be bulletproof. However, some data was corrupted. The clock ticked as they attempted data recovery, each success or error beep-raising tension. One night, Jeremy was driving back from Sadie's after making sure she was comfortable, assisted by nurse check-ins. Along a dark stretch of road near the tavern, he spotted Gerald's flashy sedan pulled over. Headlights illuminated the drizzle. Gerald stood outside, phone to his ear, obviously in an argument. Jeremy slowed, half tempted to drive on, but a flash of recklessness made him stop. He stepped out into the rain. Gerald glared. Need something, Haynes? Jeremy advanced calmly. Just making sure you're not dumping more threats. Car trouble? Gerald sneered. None of your business. He ended his call. You can't beat me in court. Nora and I have stacked witnesses, false or not. We'll bury you. And if that fails, well, accidents happen. A flicker of alarm crossed Jeremy's face. Stay away from my mother. His voice was deadly quiet. Gerald's lip curled. Or what? You'll deck me in the street? That'd help me paint you as violent in court. Go ahead. For a moment, Jeremy's fists clenched. Then he exhaled, stepping back. I'm not giving you that ammo. But know this. I'm not rolling over. You think you're unstoppable? I'll see you in court and you'll lose. With that, Jeremy returned to his truck, driving away. Gerald's silhouette in the rearview mirror looked every bit the cornered snake preparing to strike. As the night swallowed the road, Jeremy's mind churned with new resolve. No matter how cunning Gerald might be, Jeremy would match him step for step legally. The heartbreak was now overshadowed by righteous fury. The tension is at a fever pitch. Both sides brace for the upcoming legal showdown, forging documents versus real receipts, threatened bribery versus unwavering loyalty. Sadie's health adds urgency, Ellie's data search holds key evidence, and the storm looms with no turning back. Chapter 6. A chilly morning dawned on the Brentwood Falls Courthouse, an unassuming building with aged stone columns. Inside, the tension was anything but modest. This was a preliminary hearing for the divorce and property claims, just a step before the full trial, but vital for setting parameters. Jeremy, accompanied by Margaret Clay, arrived early. He wore a neat-collared shirt, nerves masked by calm determination. Sadie, though weak, insisted on attending to show her unwavering stance. She held Ellie's arm for support. Nora arrived in a sleek designer outfit, flanked by her high-powered city lawyer, Pamela Royce. Gerald trailed behind, quietly confident, though he had no official role as he wasn't a spouse. As they gathered in the corridor, Nora glanced at Sadie with a mix of contempt and envy. Sadie gave a polite nod. Gerald and Jeremy exchanged cold stares. Inside, the judge, Judge Walters, an older gentleman known for fairness, called the room to order. Pamela launched an attack. "We have evidence that Mr. Jeremy Haynes effectively co-owned the lottery funds. We'll show proof of commingled finances and statements from credible witnesses attesting that Jeremy claimed it as his own fortune." She produced a thick binder of alleged deposit slips, testimonies, even a half-dozen sworn affidavits from individuals, some bribed, claiming they heard Jeremy say "my $1 million check," etc. Margaret countered with calm precision. "All official documentation indicates the ticket was purchased by Sadie Haynes, Jeremy's mother, and the state lottery recognized her as the winner. Bank records to disprove these alleged commingling claims are forthcoming. We also challenge the credibility of these so-called witnesses." The judge listened intently, taking notes, occasionally adjusting his glasses. He set a short timeline for both parties to file more definitive evidence. The hearing took a dramatic turn when one of the bribed witnesses, Harold Tobin, took the stand. Pamela asked him leading questions about how Jeremy allegedly bragged at the Lazy Oak Tavern, but Harold seemed nervous, sweating under the judge's gaze. He started repeating the script Gerald gave him, but stumbled over details. "Yes, I recall Jeremy said, my big jackpot about $78 million. Margaret cross-examined, pressing on specifics. "When exactly did he say that? Which date? Who else was present?" Harold's answers became inconsistent. The tension soared when Harold, eyes flicking to Gerald, realized he might be perjuring himself. He ended up giving vague contradictions. Pamela tried to salvage, but the judge frowned. Though not a definitive victory for Jeremy, it undermined the reliability of Gerald's witnesses. After the hearing's adjournment, Sadie approached Jeremy, quietly victorious. "I think we made a dent in their nonsense," she said. The older clerk, Darlene, was present in the gallery, ready to testify but not yet called. "When they call me, I'll set it straight," she reassured Sadie. Meanwhile, Nora seemed furious at how the day went, hissing at Pamela about needing to tighten up the witness training. Ellie overheard Gerald muttering about needing bigger leverage, maybe something on Jeremy's past. She quickly informed Jeremy. "He might try to dig up anything from your youth, discredit you, or spin some rumor." Jeremy set his jaw. "They'll find nothing but minor teenage stuff like skipping class. I have no criminal record." Ellie nodded, but the dread remained. Gerald was cunning, and if no real dirt existed, he might fabricate it. That evening, at Gerald's upscale loft, Nora was pacing, furious about the hearing's partial flop. "Your fake documents are worthless if these witnesses can't keep their story straight," Gerald snapped back. "They just need more coaching. Relax. The next hearing is weeks away. We'll refine our approach. Meanwhile, we keep planting seeds of doubt." But in the heat of argument, a new tension flared. Gerald criticized her for not controlling Jeremy better early on. "Maybe if you'd been a better spouse, this would be simpler," Nora fumed. "Don't pin this on me. You're the one forging documents." Their bickering escalated, overshadowing the supposed romance that united them. Nora begins to suspect Gerald might throw her under the bus if things get dire. She also wonders if Gerald's feelings for her are only strategic. Detective Sam Fuller's presence grew more pronounced. He visited Margaret's office for an update, also dropping hints he suspected Gerald of orchestrating multiple frauds. I can't reveal details of an ongoing investigation, but let's say I'm not blind to how certain property developers operate. He asked Margaret for any unusual threats or intimidation attempts that might link to Gerald. She carefully provided a copy of the anonymous note threatening Sadie, though lacking proof it came from him. Fuller nodded. If anything escalates, let me know. We've got reason to believe Gerald's used strong-arm tactics before, usually hush-hush. He left with a final caution. Stay vigilant. He's cornered, and cornered men do desperate things. In the days following, Darlene called Ellie, excitement in her voice. You won't believe it! I was cleaning out old store records and I found the credit card slip from Sadie's lottery purchase. The slip shows her name, the total cost, the date. That's the day we sold that winning ticket. This is gold, Ellie nearly shouted with joy. Keep it safe. This alone can unravel their entire claim that Jeremy co-owned the ticket. Margaret will be thrilled. They scheduled a meeting at Margaret's office to show her. She examined the slip. It's indeed a credit card slip from Sadie's account. That's conclusive that she paid for the ticket. This is a slam dunk. In a fair court, the judge sees this, declares the lottery strictly Sadie's property. End of story. Word of Darlene's discovery reached Gerald through a contact at the store. He raged in his office. If they have the slip, we're in trouble. That plus the store's camera footage is unstoppable. He called in a favor from a shady private investigator, Mel Brown, someone known for fixing problems, sometimes unethically. Gerald hissed, We need that slip lost, or I need a reason to discredit it. Breaking and entering, theft, whatever. Just get it done discreetly. I'll pay triple. Mel nodded, offering no moral qualms. Consider it handled. Gerald crosses a line from forging docs to orchestrating potential property crime like burglary or intimidation to destroy evidence. Anticipating dirty moves, Jeremy stationed Keith for an overnight watch at Margaret's building where the crucial documents were stored. They also kept digital scans, but the original slip was essential. Late in the night, Keith spotted a hooded figure lurking around the building's side door. The figure tried picking the lock with stealth. Keith alerted local police quietly, slipping into the shadows with a phone camera rolling. The intruder almost succeeded in forcing entry but heard faint sirens approaching, leading them to flee. Keith captured partial glimpses of them leaving in a dark sedan. The partial license plate matched a rental car from the city. The next morning, Detective Fuller took the report. Seems someone tried to get inside. Good thing you were prepared. The scans are safe, right? Jeremy confirmed they had backups stored in a secure location as well. In a desperate gambit, Nora drove to Sadie's cottage. She knocked politely, finding Sadie on her porch, sipping tea. Mrs. Haynes, can we talk alone? Sadie, ever gracious, gestured for her to sit. Nora feigned remorse, tears brimming. I messed up. I never meant to hurt your son this deeply. Gerald manipulated me, twisted my dreams. I just wanted a better life, not this legal war. Sadie listened quietly. Then Nora pivoted. If you'd just gift me a portion some settlement, Gerald would back off. We'd drop the case. You can have your peaceful existence. Sadie's eyes narrowed. Meaning you want hush money to disappear? Nora, swallowing, nodded. Let's keep this out of court. Please, let's be civil for Jeremy's sake. Sadie stared long at Nora. Civil? After you threatened me? After forging documents? After betraying Jeer? I see your crocodile tears. No, Nora. The time for civility was before you tried to scam my son. Now we'll let the court see the truth. A flash of anger crossed Nora's face. She stood abruptly. Then you leave me no choice. She sped off in her car, peeling away from the gravel driveway. Sadie exhaled shakily, a hand on her chest. She dialed Jeremy immediately. She came. She threatened a settlement demand. I refused. Nora's final attempt at a quick bribe fix fails, pushing her further under Gerald's dark influence. With no resolution in negotiations, both sides braced for the official trial date. Margaret, Jeremy, and their allies had the credit card slip, store footage, loyal testimonies. Gerald and Nora had forged documents, paid witnesses, and a lurking shady PI. Tension soared as the day approached. Keith discovered a suspicious black SUV parked near Sadie's place again, this time the occupant wearing a ski cap, apparently armed. He spooked them off by shining a flashlight, but the message was clear: intimidation. Meanwhile, Detective Fuller quietly built a parallel investigation into Gerald's real estate fraud. He hinted to Margaret that an arrest might come from higher agencies soon, but no timeline guaranteed. At a final strategy session, Margaret laid out the possible outcomes. If the judge rules in Jeremy's favor, the lottery remains solely Sadie's. Nora likely walks away with minimal marital property, battered by evidence of adultery and wrongdoing. If Gerald manages to sabotage or destroy key evidence, Nora might get half or a large settlement. If the legal approach fails, Jeremy and Sadie might face financial havoc, but they still hold moral ground. Jeremy nodded, fists clenched. We won't let it fail. I'll protect Mom come hell or high water. Enough heartbreak time for justice. Chapter 7. News of the impending trial spread through Brentwood Falls, capturing the interest of locals who typically only cared about harvest schedules and small-town gossip. Some expressed sympathy for Jeremy, seeing him as a hard-working man, ensnared by a gold-digging spouse and a shady developer. Others remained neutral, curious how the legal drama would unfold. A smattering of townsfolk, resentful or envious of the lottery fortune, whispered that maybe Nora had a point. Money was meant to be spent lavishly. Ellie, roaming the library, overheard two older patrons discussing, "He should have just given her half to keep peace." Another patron retorted, "That's his mother's money. She's no saint to deserve half." Ellie stiffened, quietly resolved to stand for truth. Midweek, Margaret received an unsolicited phone call from Pamela Royce, Nora's lawyer. She proposed an out-of-court settlement, $10 million lump sum to Nora, plus some monthly spousal support. In exchange, they drop all claims and forgeries. She'll keep quiet about alleged co-ownership, Pamela said, a not-so-subtle blackmail. Margaret relayed the offer to Jeremy, who scoffed. "They want hush money. $10 million for stabbing me in the back?" "Not happening," Sadie concurred. "They deserve zero. Let them squirm at trial." Margaret agreed. "We're stronger than ever with the credit slip and store footage. Unless they do something drastic, we're in a good position." Unbeknownst to them, Gerald authorized the shady PI, Mel Brown, to ramp up sabotage. One night, Margaret's law office was ransacked. Drawers flung open, files strewn. The cleaning staff discovered the mess. By dawn, Margaret was on site with the police, including Detective Fuller. Miraculously, the key evidence, credit card slip, official statements, were locked in a secure cabinet, plus digital backups off-site. The vandals found only incomplete documents. "They were definitely searching for that slip," Margaret said. "We outsmarted them." Fuller took notes, suspecting Gerald's involvement but lacking direct proof. "They left minimal traces. Could be the same black SUV sightings." The break-in attempt reeked of desperation. Jeremy, anger flaring, declared, "They won't stop until the trial. Let's double-check every piece of evidence. Keep multiple backups. If they want a war, we'll ensure they fail." One sleepless night, Jeremy found himself at Keith's place, sipping a beer on the porch. Emotions bottled up for weeks finally spilled out. "I'm not just angry, man. I'm shattered. I did love Nora once. We had plans, maybe not big city ones, but we had some. Now I see her like a stranger." Keith placed a reassuring hand on Jeremy's shoulder. "Betrayal cuts deep, but you're handling it with more grace than anyone I know. Just promise me you won't do anything rash or vengeful." "I promise," Jeremy murmured, gazing at the moonlit farmland. "But if they push further, threaten Sadie more, I might lose that grace." A quiet vow lingered in the night air. Amid the chaos, a surprising figure approached Margaret's office. Harold Tobin, the bribed witness from earlier. He carried a worn hat in his hands, posture apologetic. "Ma'am, I need to come clean. I lied in my affidavit. Gerald gave me $3,000 to say I heard Jeremy claim ownership of that lottery. It ain't right. My conscience can't take it." Margaret's eyes widened. "You realize by admitting perjury, you risk legal repercussions. But if you testify truthfully now, we can help. Possibly a deal with the court for your honesty." He exhaled, relieved. "Yes, ma'am. I can sign a new affidavit, record a statement about how Gerald orchestrated it." Margaret promptly arranged a formal statement to be used at trial. This bombshell threatened to unravel Gerald's entire witness strategy. Harold reveals the name of the contact who handled the bribe, someone close to Gerald's business. This direct link might tie Gerald to suborning perjury. When Harold's confession reached Detective Fuller, it validated his suspicions about Gerald's illegal manipulations. He compiled more evidence, leaning toward an official investigation beyond a civil matter, possibly criminal charges for suborning perjury, forgery, intimidation. However, bureaucratic red tape slowed the process. "We need a bit more to arrest him," Fuller told Margaret and Jeremy. "But we're close." News of Harold's defection reached Gerald quickly. In his penthouse suite, he unleashed on Nora. "Your incompetent stooges can't keep their stories straight. Harold flipped. This might unravel everything." Nora, corners of her lips tight, responded. "Then we find replacements or discredit him, accuse him of extortion or mental instability. We can't let this melt down." Gerald slammed a fist onto a table. "I'm done playing small. If you want that multi-million settlement, we go nuclear." He called Pamela, instructing her to file motions casting doubt on Harold's credibility, claiming he was a known alcoholic or gambler. Meanwhile, Gerald schemed to sabotage Margaret's new star witness, Darlene. Late one evening, Darlene returned from her shift at the convenience store to find her front door slightly ajar. Alarmed, she stepped inside. The living room was ransacked. Before she could call the police, a masked figure emerged from the shadows. "Hand over the slip," he growled, brandishing a small knife. "We know you got a receipt. Give it." Terrified, Darlene stammered, It's not here. I gave it to the lawyer." She tried to keep calm. The intruder cursed, rummaging a final time. Then, hearing a neighbor's dog bark, fled into the night. Darlene called the police, trembling. Detective Fuller arrived quickly, suspecting Gerald's PI or henchman. This brazen home invasion escalated the seriousness. Darlene, shaken but resolute, vowed not to back down. "I'll testify in court. Let them try to scare me. They won't break me." She phoned Margaret to confirm the slip remained locked safe. It was indeed still secure. In response to these intimidation tactics, Margaret filed for a protective order on Sadie, Darlene, Harold, and any key witnesses. The judge, seeing the pattern of burglaries, break-ins, intimidation, granted partial protections limiting direct contact from Gerald or Nora's associates. This was a blow to Gerald's side, but they pivoted to more subtle harassment. Nora, feeling the net tighten, screamed at Gerald. "You're turning this into a mafia war. I just want my money." He retorted, "Shut up or lose everything. We do it my way." In the final days before the official trial, Margaret had a bulletproof chain of evidence: the credit card slip, store clerk testimony, bank logs disproving commingling, and now Harold's confession exposing Gerald's bribery. They also had the moral high ground regarding Sadie's threats and Darlene's break-in attempts. Detective Fuller hovered on the periphery, preparing potential criminal charges. Gerald and Nora were cornered, forging last-ditch claims. But each new attempt seemed flimsy. Their only hope was to undermine the credibility of witnesses or shock the court with new illusions. On the eve of the trial, tension is at a breaking point. Jeremy stands on the cusp of a resounding legal triumph. Yet, the final lines show Gerald in a murky phone call saying, "If the law can't be broken, we might break the man," hinting at a final desperate measure, perhaps a personal assault or blackmail bombshell. The stakes have never been higher. Chapter 8. The day had arrived. A throng of onlookers, townsfolk, curious reporters crowded the county courthouse. The tension was electric. Inside the packed courtroom, Judge Walters presided over the divorce property case, with an undercurrent of hush about potential fraud investigations swirling around Gerald. Nora's lawyer, Pamela Royce, presented her opening statement. "We will prove that Jeremy Haynes, acting as a spouse, implicitly made the lottery a marital asset and misled my client. We have witness affidavits showing he repeatedly claimed the winnings. We have documents—" Margaret rose calmly, delivering their counter. "The simple truth, the ticket was lawfully purchased by Sadie Haynes, not Jeremy. Nora's claim to half is baseless. We'll also show evidence of forgery and perjury orchestrated by external parties." Sadie sat in the front row, pale but resolute, Ellie by her side. Keith hovered behind Jeremy, arms folded, a subtle show of solidarity. One by one, witnesses took the stand. Gerald's side called two bribed individuals who tried to claim, "Yes, Jeremy said it's his money. He told me so at the bar." Margaret cross-examined, picking apart their vagueness. They stumbled on cross-questions about specific dates, times, and other details. Margaret then presented several loyal construction crew members, each recounting how Jeremy consistently referred to it as Mom's big win and never took personal ownership. The contrast was stark. One bribed witness who initially repeated the script abruptly faltered mid-testimony, apparently experiencing guilt or fear, retracting parts of their statement. The judge frowned, suspecting manipulation. Finally, Darlene took the stand. Her calm, sincere demeanor struck the courtroom. She recounted how Sadie used her credit card for that lottery ticket, joked about it, and made no mention of Jeremy's ownership. Then Margaret displayed the original credit card slip. The prosecution, Nora's side, tried to object, claiming possible forgery, but Margaret introduced store camera stills verifying Darlene's story. The judge examined the slip, cross-referencing the date-time with the lottery records. This strongly suggests Sadie Haynes was indeed the sole purchaser, he remarked. Pamela tried to discredit Darlene's break-in story, implying it was staged, but that only drew sympathy from the judge, especially given the police report. A hush fell as Harold took the stand. Pale with nerves, he admitted, "I was approached by Mr. Burton's associates, offered money to claim I heard Jeremy call the ticket his. That was a lie. Jeremy never said such a thing to me." The gallery erupted in murmurs. Judge Walters hammered his gavel, calling for order. Pamela attempted to cast Harold as unreliable, but Margaret guided him carefully, making him detail how the bribe occurred, referencing approximate amounts and instructions to lie. While Harold's tarnished credibility was not perfect, the rawness of his confession was compelling. Nora's face hardened, shooting a glare at Gerald. He stared back, expression stone cold. Reluctantly, Nora had to testify. Pamela coached her to depict a marriage where Jeremy made big promises about our future with the winnings, implying co-ownership. But Margaret's cross-examination was brutal. Margaret: did Jeremy explicitly state the lottery money was yours together? Nora: well, he hinted we'd be wealthy as a couple. Margaret: hinted or stated? Please be precise. Nora fumbled. He said, we'll fix up life, which I interpreted as ours. Margaret hammered home. Is that the same as legally counting the funds, especially if the ticket was in Sadie's name? Did Jeremy deposit the winnings into a marital account? Nora stammered. I guess not. But he used some for a new truck, which I thought meant... Margaret calmly produced evidence that the truck was purchased with Sadie's separate gift, not from a joint account. The receipts matched Sadie's funds, reaffirming the separation. Flustered, Nora tried pivoting to emotional pleas, complaining about small-town misery. The judge showed limited sympathy, focusing on facts. She stepped down, humiliated. Though not a spouse, Gerald tried to have his lawyer request he testify on relevant knowledge of Jeremy's statements. The judge allowed a brief testimony. Gerald's smug presence filled the witness box. He claimed to have heard Jeremy mention controlling the money. Margaret cross-examined, unveiling the newly discovered records of Gerald's questionable real estate dealings and the bribed witness fiasco. She hammered him on suborning perjury. Gerald sneered, denied everything. But tension soared as the judge's disapproval became evident. Mid-testimony, Detective Fuller entered the courtroom quietly, handing a note to the bailiff. The bailiff gave it to the judge, who read it, face betraying mild shock. The judge then announced an unscheduled recess, clearly triggered by Fuller's new info. During recess, the judge summoned counsel to chambers, informing them that the county's fraud unit might file charges against Gerald for forging documents, bribery, and attempted intimidation of witnesses. Pamela paled, realizing the entire approach could backfire catastrophically. Nora, eavesdropping at the corridor, felt her heart drop. If Gerald faced criminal charges, her entire foundation for attacking Jeremy's fortune would collapse. Seeing the walls close in, Nora cornered Jeremy outside the courtroom, away from prying eyes. Jeremy, please, let's settle. No trial, no public fiasco. I'll walk away with some smaller sum, say $1 million or $2 million to start fresh. We don't have to destroy each other. He studied her tear-stained face, remembering their history, but he recalled her repeated betrayals. You threatened my mother, faked documents, and allied with a crook. Now you want mercy? She whispered, trembling. Yes, because if Gerald goes down, I have nothing. I'm sorry, Jer. It wasn't supposed to be this ugly. He felt a pang of old love, but steeled himself. You sowed this. The best I can offer is that I won't push for you to face criminal charges if you accept zero from the lottery. I might consider letting you keep the furniture or minor assets from the marriage. That's all. Tears turned to anger in her eyes. You bastard! She stormed away. The final break between them was carved in stone. When court resumed, the judge was more openly skeptical of Nora's and Gerald's camp. He openly questioned the authenticity of the commingling documents, referencing the possibility of criminal forgery investigations. Pamela tried damage control, claiming misunderstandings. The judge set a new date for final arguments, hinting strongly that if no credible evidence arises, he might rule in favor of Sadie's ownership. Margaret gave Jeremy a small nod of triumph. They were nearing the finish line, but the swirling tension suggested Gerald wasn't done. That evening, after the court session, Keith planned to drop by Sadie's cottage, but he found her driveway empty, lights off, and the door slightly ajar, a chilling echo of Darlene's earlier break-in. Inside, no sign of struggle, but no sign of Sadie either. Her phone lay on a table. She never left without it. Keith's heart pounded. He quickly searched the property. No note, no footprints, just eerie silence. He immediately called Jeremy, who rushed over, eyes wild with fear. "She's gone, Jer," Keith said in a choked voice. "She's not answering. The security guard for tonight is missing too." As they phoned the police, a sinking realization hit them. Could Gerald have orchestrated a kidnapping? The phone rang in Jeremy's hand, a blocked number. He answered, trembling. A garbled voice said, "Stop the trial, or your mother never returns." Then the line went dead. Sadie is missing, presumably abducted. The tension explodes into a potential kidnapping that dwarfs the legal wrangling. Jeremy faces the ultimate test. Yield or risk his mother's safety. The next chapter will see how far Gerald's desperation leads, or if there's more to it than meets the eye. Chapter 9. Panic seized Brentwood Falls as news spread that Sadie was missing. Jeremy, pale with dread, stood on her front porch while police lights bathed the yard. Detective Fuller arrived, quickly organizing search teams. "We'll do a local perimeter check. Question neighbors. She's well-liked, so folks will help." Keith tried to console Jeremy, who was near his breaking point. "We'll find her, Jer. Don't do anything rash. Let the police handle it." But Jeremy's mind raced with horrifying possibilities. Gerald's final move. Within an hour, Margaret received an email from an anonymous account. "Drop the lawsuit. Transfer $2 million to an offshore account or Sadie pays the price." The email also demanded that no mention of kidnapping be made to the trial or the cops. But it was too late. The police already knew. Fuller read the email, frowning. Could be Gerald or an associate, or someone else capitalizing on the fiasco. We must handle this carefully. Margaret urged calm. Don't cave. Let's see if they escalate or contact again. Jeremy, voice trembling. But my mother's life is at stake. Margaret suggests stalling. We can pretend to negotiate, glean clues from any further instructions. Fuller sets up a digital trace to track them if they email again. Meanwhile, Gerald was startled by the kidnapping rumor. If it was done under his name, it risked serious criminal blowback. But he also recognized it could be an advantage. If Jeremy withdrew from the trial out of fear, Gerald might escape legal ruin. Nora, hearing about Sadie's disappearance, felt a pang of guilt. "Gerald, did you do this?" she demanded in a trembling voice. "I wanted the money, not kidnapping." He retorted, "I told you I handle things my way. If it's not me, maybe it's my associates going rogue." Nora's expression twisted, torn between fear and moral revulsion. "We never agreed to kill or kidnap. This is insane." She threatened to walk out, but Gerald grabbed her arm. "If you run, you lose any chance of that money. Also, you'll be complicit in everything. Don't forget. Your name is on those forged docs, too." She slumped, trapped. Refusing to remain idle, Keith quietly gathered a few loyal construction buddies to comb the outskirts of Brentwood Falls' old barns, abandoned properties anywhere suspicious. They left no stone unturned. At one deserted farmhouse, they found a half-eaten meal, fresh footprints, but no sign of Sadie. A phone charger was left behind, brand unknown. Keith photographed everything, passing it to Fuller. The detective speculated it might belong to the kidnapper, but no confirmation yet. Ellie also pitched in, scanning local highways for the black SUV sightings. She interviewed gas station attendants, jotted down partial plates. One recall from a station clerk. A black SUV with city plates came by. Driver looked edgy, buying rope and duct tape. The date was suspiciously close to Sadie's disappearance. Ellie gave the info to the police. Late that night, Jeremy's phone rang, again with a blocked number. A disguised voice. 2 million. Offshore. Or the old lady disappears forever. Jeremy forced a steady tone. Proof of life first. A muffled sob was heard, faintly sounding like Sadie's voice saying, "Jeremy, I'm okay." Then the line resumed. "You have 48 hours. Don't contact cops or you know what happens." Jeremy, heart pounding, nodded to Fuller, who was silently tracing the call. The abductor hung up too soon. They only triangulated the call to a cell tower near the city limits, not enough to pinpoint. During the call, Jeremy recognized a subtle detail, maybe a background noise, a train whistle, which might indicate a location near the old freight yard. Fuller notes it. "We'll check that freight yard area." Next morning, something unexpected occurred. Gerald personally showed up at Jeremy's doorstep, looking uncharacteristically rattled. "I swear I had no part in kidnapping your mother," he insisted. "Whatever we did, forging documents, intimidation, this is beyond. My associates might have gone rogue, Lee. Let me help find her." Jeremy nearly lunged at him in anger, but Margaret, present, intervened. Gerald continued. "This fiasco helps no one. If Sadie is harmed, the court will definitely turn against me. I'll share any leads I have." Margaret asked suspiciously, "So you want to prove you're innocent?" He nodded. "Yes. I only wanted to manipulate the trial, not kidnap an old lady. We need to fix this." Jeremy's face twisted with confusion. He despised Gerald, but Sadie's safety overshadowed pride. "If you have info that leads to her, fine. But I'm not trusting you." Gerald shrugged. "Fair enough. I know one PI associate who might be behind this. I can track him down." Warily, they formed a tense alliance to find Sadie, albeit with watchers on Gerald to ensure no trick. Meanwhile, Nora wrestled with guilt. She visited Ellie unannounced, corners of her eyes tear-stained. "Ellie, I'm so messed up. I never wanted harm to Sadie." Ellie frowned but listened. "Then do the right thing. Help us locate her. Turn against Gerald's criminal tactics." Nora trembled. "If I do, he'll ruin me. I might face perjury charges, lose everything. But I can't let an innocent old woman suffer." She was at a moral crossroads. Ellie pressed softly. "Redemption starts with telling the truth, cooperating with the police." Nora bit her lip, uncertain. Nora reveals she once overheard Gerald's men mention a safe house near the old freight lines. She never realized it could be used for kidnapping, but now suspects that's where Sadie might be. Armed with Nora's tip about the old freight lines, plus the train whistle clue from the phone call, Jeremy, Keith, and Detective Fuller led a discreet operation. They avoided official SWAT due to the ransom demands. If the kidnappers got spooked, they might harm Sadie. So a small stealth team, including local officers, headed to an abandoned freight warehouse near the city border at dusk. Inside, dim lights revealed a maze of crates and dusty corridors. A single overhead lamp glowed in a far corner. The group moved quietly, hearts pounding. They heard faint murmurs. As they turned a corner, they spotted a guard with a handgun. Keith silently tackled him, subduing him before he could fire. Fuller cuffed the man, demanding, "Where is Sadie Haynes?" The man spat curses. Another corridor led them to a locked room. They heard Sadie's muffled voice. Swiftly, the team forced the door open. Sadie sat bound to a chair, trembling but alive. She gasped relief, tears streaming. Jeremy rushed to her, carefully untying ropes. "Mom!" She collapsed into his arms, weeping. At least 2 more armed thugs confronted them. A brief scuffle ensued. One suspect fired a shot overhead, forcing the group to take cover. Fuller, quietly giving instructions, flanked them with local cops. The kidnappers realized they were outnumbered, eventually surrendering. Freed from her captivity, Sadie clung to Jeremy, Keith ushering them to safety. Among the arrested men, none were Gerald or the shady PI, but the men admitted under questioning that someone paid us to do the job, an intermediary. The chain of command pointed back to certain associates in Gerald's network. One thug's phone might contain calls to a certain Mel, presumably Gerald's shady PI, tying him to the plot. Ambulances checked Sadie, her vital signs stable but fragile. Jeremy was overcome with gratitude and rage, in equal measure grateful she was rescued, furious at those behind it. Detective Fuller took statements, collecting evidence from the crime scene that might implicate Gerald's circle. The next day in court, the shocking kidnapping attempt overshadowed everything. The judge demanded answers. While Gerald publicly disavowed any involvement, the swirl of suspicion heavily stained his camp's credibility. Nora, pale and trembling, realized she was in freefall tied to a man likely behind or at least connected to a kidnapping plot. Margaret capitalized on it. "Your Honor, given the kidnapping scheme that evidently targeted Sadie Haynes, we urge immediate ruling. The entire case from Nora's side is built on fraud and intimidation. She is not entitled to any share of the lottery. We ask for the divorce to be finalized, awarding minimal spousal assets." Judge Walters took the plea under advisement, scheduling final arguments soon. The mood was that the wind was strongly in Jeremy's favor. Sadie is safe, but the kidnapping attempt is pinned on Gerald's associates. The final trial phase looms, likely to bring criminal charges. Will Gerald face arrest mid-court? Will Nora flip on him entirely to save herself? Tension is at fever pitch, setting the stage for the final Part 3's dramatic resolution. Chapter 10. The morning after Sadie's rescue began with an overwhelming surge of relief throughout Brentwood Falls, followed just as quickly by the burning question: who orchestrated the kidnapping? While local law enforcement had begun piecing together evidence linking some of Gerald's associates to the crime, no direct arrest warrant for Gerald himself had yet materialized. The town's rumor mill churned at full tilt, painting him as the prime suspect regardless. At dawn, Jeremy woke in a cot near Sadie's bed, refusing to leave her side. He had insisted on taking her home after the hospital gave a quick checkup, relying on round-the-clock watch from Keith and a private security guard. The strain on Sadie was visible. She looked pale, her voice subdued but determined. Sadie, gentle, resolute. "I'll never be intimidated by men like that. They came so close to I don't want to even think about it. Jeremy, we have to finish this fight. Let them face justice." Jeremy, voice tight. "We will. The trial's nearing its conclusion. I just can't believe they stooped to kidnapping." Sadie, "It's a blessing I was found. My biggest worry is what new extremes they'll attempt if cornered." Keith entered the room, updating them that local officer patrols were stationed outside day and night. "We won't let them near her again, Jer." Jeremy exhaled relief, but a distant anger simmered behind his eyes, fueling his resolve. At the county sheriff's department, Detective Sam Fuller carefully reviewed statements from the arrested kidnappers. They'd revealed partial details. A man named Mel paid them to abduct Sadie, delivering half up front, half upon completion. But the kidnappers claimed ignorance of Mel's real boss. Some suspected Gerald, others refused to confirm. Fuller made phone calls to city contacts, searching for leads on Mel Brown, the private investigator rumored to be in Gerald's orbit. He discovered a handful of sealed court records referencing Brown's involvement in other intimidation cases. Though non-conclusive, they painted a pattern consistent with being a fixer for unscrupulous clients. Fuller, muttering to a colleague, "We're closing in. If we can tie Mel directly to Gerald's instructions, that's conspiracy to commit kidnapping." Colleague, "You'll need phone records, transactions, or a recorded statement? Fuller. Working on it. Gotta be careful. Gerald's a master at covering tracks. Fuller suspected that after the fiasco with the bribed witnesses, Gerald was frantic enough to greenlight a kidnapping. He just needed proof. At her law firm, Margaret gathered the entire defense team, including Jeremy, Keith, Ellie, and a few supportive attorneys from outside. Her meeting agenda: final trial strategy plus safeguards on all evidence. The kidnapping fiasco had shifted public sentiment strongly in Jeremy's favor, but Margaret refused to get complacent. She assigned each team member tasks. Keith would coordinate with security, ensuring no further sabotage of evidence. Ellie would finalize the chain of custody for every document: the credit card slip, store camera video, signed affidavits from loyal construction workers, Harold's confession. Margaret would craft the final statement highlighting Nora's betrayal, Gerald's possible criminal entanglements, and the moral dimension of threatening Sadie. Margaret also addressed the possibility of a criminal trial after this civil matter concluded. Detective Fuller is building a case for conspiracy and intimidation. If that formalizes before or after the divorce ruling, it might overshadow everything. Our goal remains: prove the lottery belongs solely to Sadie, finalize Jeremy's divorce with minimal or no settlement to Nora. The group nodded in agreement. Miles away, in Gerald's sleek penthouse, the atmosphere was anything but calm. He paced in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the city skyline that once symbolized his power. Now it felt like a cage. The kidnapping fiasco had backfired, pushing public sympathy to Jeremy. Worse, the kidnappers got caught, risking them flipping on him. Nora perched on a settee, face drawn. All this? For what? I haven't seen a dime. We lost every advantage. Her voice shook with bitterness, tinged with regret. I only wanted a comfortable life away from small-town boredom, not crimes. Gerald whirled on her. You think I wanted a fiasco? My plan was to manipulate evidence, not abduct people. If it was Mel or some underling, they took it too far. She stared back, tears forming. So you claim innocence? So does that magically fix the perjury, the forged docs, the intimidation? We're complicit, Gerald. They'll come for us both. He sank into a chair, raking a hand through his hair. We can salvage this if the final hearing goes our way. Or we bail out of the country. Nora froze. You'd run? His eyes flicked with a hint of mania. If they push criminal charges, yes. But only if there's no path left to kill this case in court. She realized with a pang that loyalty meant nothing to him. If flight served him best, he'd vanish, leaving her to face consequences alone. Late one evening, while Margaret was working in her office, her phone buzzed. The caller ID read unknown. She answered cautiously. This is Margaret Clay. A quiet voice. It's Nora. Don't hang up. I need help. Margaret's eyes narrowed. If this is about more settlement demands, save your breath. Nora's tone sounded genuinely distressed. No, I can't live with what I've done. The kidnapping was never my plan. Gerald's out of control. I can't trust him. I want to make a deal, turn over everything I know about his forgeries, his involvement in intimidation, in exchange for leniency on me. Margaret hesitated, mindful of legal ethics. If you want immunity, that's for the prosecutors or Detective Fuller. But if you're sincere, we can talk. Are you prepared to testify? Possibly incriminate yourself? Nora exhaled a trembling breath. Yes, if it means I can avoid prison and maybe salvage a piece of my life. Margaret arranged a clandestine meeting at her office. She also immediately informed Jeremy and Detective Fuller about the possibility of Nora flipping. At midnight, Nora snuck into Margaret's law firm, disguised in a simple hoodie. Jeremy, Keith, and Detective Fuller were present. Though Jeremy sat in a corner, arms crossed, glaring at her, Nora looked exhausted, eyes puffy from crying. She placed a small folder on Margaret's desk. Documents I have from Gerald's private files, bank transfers to certain enforcers, forged notary stamps, proof he made statements about removing obstacles. I don't know if it's enough to convict him, but it's a start. Detective Fuller carefully reviewed the folder, excitement in his eyes. This could push the needle for a formal warrant, if it's legitimate, he asked Nora. But why now? Why betray your partner in crime? Her voice broke. I never wanted kidnapping. That's crossing a line I can't abide. Gerald would bury me too. I just want an out. She looked at Jeremy, sorrowful. I was weak and greedy, Jer. I'm sorry. He stared, pain etched in his features. Your apology can't undo the harm, especially what Mom went through. But maybe this saves you from worse. Up to the prosecutor. He refused to say more, the wound still fresh. Armed with Nora's partial evidence, plus the kidnapper's confessions that pointed to a link with a Mel Brown, Fuller methodically built the final puzzle. They found references of payments from a shell account connected to Gerald's real estate empire. Fuller secured a judge's approval for a no-knock warrant on Brown's known address. Next afternoon, the police raided the dingy apartment, arresting Brown. Searching the premises, they found a trove of suspicious contract notes, text logs referencing G's instructions, kidnapping plan, intimidate old woman. One text chain explicitly mentions, clear out the old lady so Jer folds in court. This is the smoking gun, tying Gerald's name-coded instructions to the abduction plot. Word spread that the police had evidence to arrest Gerald for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, forgery, suborning perjury. On the morning of the final hearing, Gerald swaggered in with Nora by his side, fully expecting to continue. But just as proceedings began, Detective Fuller and uniformed officers entered the courtroom. The judge paused in confusion. Fuller stepped forward, handing the judge official documents. We have a warrant for Gerald Burton's arrest on multiple felony charges, including conspiracy to kidnap Sadie Haynes. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Pamela Royce, Gerald's lawyer, stammered protests, but the judge allowed the arrest, citing probable cause. Gerald erupted, cursing. This is a farce, a setup by that hick detective. Officers cuffed him, leading him out. Nora looked shell-shocked. Whispers swept the gallery. Jeremy glanced at Sadie. Relief mingled with the gravity of the moment. Sadie squeezed his hand gently. The judge, face stern, announced the divorce trial would proceed minus Gerald's presence. He addressed Nora's lawyer. Given these developments, do you still wish to press the co-ownership claim? All your supporting evidence is now tainted by your associate's criminal actions. Pamela swallowed. Your Honor, we, withdraw the co-ownership claim. We request an adjournment to reconsider. Margaret rose, pushing for an immediate ruling. They coerced witnesses, forged documents, even orchestrated violence. The court must finalize that the lottery belongs solely to Sadie, awarding no share to Nora. Let's end this fiasco for good. After brief deliberation, the judge hammered his gavel. In light of the overwhelming evidence that Sadie Haynes is the sole legal owner of the lottery proceeds, and given the adultery and wrongdoing from Nora's side, I rule that there is no marital property claim to these funds. The divorce is granted with minimal spousal property distributed. Ms. Nora receives only the personal property enumerated in prior settlement. No alimony, court adjourned. Cheers erupted among Jeremy's supporters. Tears welled in Sadie's eyes, happy tears. Ellie hugged Keith, who whooped quietly. Jeremy closed his eyes, exhaling a huge weight. The legal war ended with a decisive victory. However, the swirl of emotion remained. Heartbreak from betrayal, relief that justice was served, fury at how far Gerald had gone. Nora stood alone, trembling. The sense of defeat crashed over her. People parted around her, ignoring her attempts at eye contact. She gave a fleeting look at Jeremy, maybe yearning for a final conversation. But he turned away, focusing on Sadie. She left the courthouse in a haze, overshadowed by Gerald's dramatic downfall. That evening, Jeremy and close friends gathered at Keith's place for a subdued celebration. They ate a homemade dinner, no fancy champagne, just heartfelt relief. Sadie was present, sitting comfortably with a blanket. She gently told Jeremy, "We can finally heal. Maybe we can do something good with my winnings. Something that honors the blessings we have." He nodded, tears threatening. "I'd like that. Maybe we start a community fund, help local folks in need, build something positive from all this turmoil." The group agreed wholeheartedly, talk of scholarships or a charity project swirling. Before the night ended, Margaret arrived with news that the prosecution was finalizing charges on Gerald, Nora possibly testifying as a key witness. That might keep the story going, ensuring a final resolution with criminal outcomes. Chapter 11. A new day dawned across Brentwood Falls, where the talk of the town was the concluded divorce trial. Jeremy's phone buzzed with supportive messages from old acquaintances, even from folks who once doubted him. The official decree filed with the county clerk documented that Nora walked away with only her personal items, clothes, a piece of furniture or two, some minor joint savings, but no share of the lottery. She also lost face in front of neighbors who saw her as either manipulated or manipulative. At his mother Sadie's house, Jeremy sipped coffee in the sunlit kitchen. "We did it," he said softly, relief evident. Sadie placed her hand gently over his. "Yes, but the scars remain. I'm proud of how you fought without stooping to their level." Keith arrived with a local newspaper featuring front-page coverage. Haynes freed from marriage scandal, Burton arrested for conspiracy. The headline bore the subtext that more criminal charges might surface. Jeremy studied the photo of Gerald in handcuffs, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and pity. Across town, the district attorney's office, DA for short, prepared an indictment detailing allegations: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, suborning perjury, forging documents, possibly more. Gerald was locked up, pending a bail hearing. He was a flight risk, given his wealth and shady connections, so the DA pushed to deny bail. Detective Fuller roamed the corridors, ensuring no detail was overlooked. He interviewed the arrested Mel Brown, pressing for a confession that Gerald directly ordered the kidnapping. Brown, cornered by evidence, eventually cooperated in part, verifying phone calls from Gerald's burner phone discussing the old lady job. The DA felt confident enough to proceed. Gerald's top-tier lawyers attempted to pull strings for bail, but the judge, mindful of the public outcry, refused. Gerald remained behind bars while the formal charges advanced. While Gerald faced immediate incarceration, Nora found herself in a precarious position. She was not arrested, but the DA eyed her role in forging documents, lying under oath, and possibly being an accessory to intimidation. She could face perjury or conspiracy charges if the DA pursued them. Pamela Royce advised, "We can negotiate immunity or a plea deal. You might avoid prison if you testify fully against Gerald and any co-conspirators." Nora trembled at the thought of prison. She hated Gerald now for dragging her into deeper crimes. "I'll do it," she told Pamela. "I'll testify. Just keep me out of a cell." Meanwhile, her personal finances were in ruins. Freed from the marriage to Jeremy but receiving no lottery settlement, she discovered Gerald had used up or seized her meager funds. She couch-surfed at a friend's place. The promised high life disintegrated. In the wake of the civil victory, Jeremy and Sadie turned attention to forging a better future. The idea of a local philanthropic foundation blossomed. They discussed building a new community center or scholarship in memory of Sadie's late husband, Jeremy's father. Excitement replaced months of dread. Jeremy, we have enough money to ensure we're comfortable, but we don't need extravagant lifestyles. Sadie, yes, let's build something lasting for this town. Help the next generation avoid pitfalls like we faced. They also considered traveling a bit, fulfilling one of Sadie's dreams of seeing the Grand Canyon or other American wonders, now that the trial's weight had lifted. But a shadow remained. The ongoing criminal case might drag them into court again as witnesses, forcing them to relive the horrors of the kidnapping. Margaret pointed out they'd need to be prepared for depositions or even a trial appearance in Gerald's criminal proceedings. Jeremy accepted it stoically. We owe it to ensure justice is fully served. Keith, relieved by the peaceful resolution, took a chance on a new career path. A local construction business offered him a foreman position, partly due to Jeremy's references. With more stability, he could settle into a better life. He also shared quiet moments with Ellie, who had blossomed from a shy librarian into an integral part of their legal fight. Gradually, a subtle mutual affection grew between them. Over coffee at the local diner, they teased each other about the next big scandal they might unearth. Ellie, soft smile. I guess we make a good detective team, huh? Keith, grinning. If you can handle me still wearing dusty boots from the job site. The moment carried an undercurrent of blossoming romance, a hopeful side to the otherwise grim drama that had consumed them for months. In late August, news broke that Gerald's criminal arraignment was set in a higher court. The DA indicted him on multiple felony counts. The kidnapping overshadowed lesser charges, but might carry the stiffest penalty. Margaret, while not a criminal attorney, was subpoenaed as a witness to the forging attempts. Sadie and Jeremy, too. Nora faced her own crossroad. The DA offered a limited immunity deal if she fully cooperated. She must sign an affidavit detailing everything from forging the documents to Gerald's direct involvement in intimidation. She'd also have to testify in the kidnapping trial. If she refused, they'd file charges against her. Nora, cornered, accepted. She dreaded facing Jeremy in the courtroom, but saw no other way. She also recognized a flicker of relief. Maybe she could salvage some shred of integrity. The DA arranged a preliminary session for all cooperating witnesses. Jeremy, Sadie, Harold, Darlene, and, shockingly, Nora. They were to give depositions in a secure building. Detective Fuller oversaw security, ensuring no sabotage. Nora arrived last. Her appearance subdued, makeup minimal. She offered no greeting to Jeremy. Instead, she sat across the conference table, eyes down, occasionally glancing up with guilt. The DA began the depositions systematically, each witness confirming how Gerald orchestrated or was complicit in forging docs, bribing testimonies, and culminating in the kidnapping scheme. Then came Nora's turn. She inhaled shakily, recounting her path from dissatisfaction in small-town life, lured by Gerald's big promises. She admitted to forging the claim that the lottery was co-owned, lying in court, and ignoring the mounting red flags about his criminal methods. The group listened in heavy silence. Jeremy forced himself to remain calm, focusing on Sadie's well-being. Nora concluded her confession with tears. I see now how far I fell. I'm truly sorry. If it helps justice, I'll testify. The DA thanked her, reminded she must be consistent or lose the immunity deal. Word reached the DA that from his jail cell, Gerald was trying to contact people on the outside, possibly to orchestrate a recantation or intimidation of witnesses. Correctional officers intercepted suspicious notes. One such note read, "Find Harold's family. Apply pressure. Make him retract." Another note, "Offer Nora a bigger payout if she changes her story." The jail staff turned these over to Fuller. With each piece of evidence, Gerald's chance of legal escape dwindled. One note indicated knowledge of a hidden bank account in the Cayman Islands, implying he might still plan to flee if granted bail. The judge, once aware, reaffirmed no bail. Attorneys for Gerald filed a barrage of motions, claiming entrapment, questioning the chain of custody for the phone records, and so forth. But with each motion, the DA responded strongly, citing witness confessions, seized phone logs, bank statements. The swirl of pre-trial headlines overshadowed even the finale of Jeremy's divorce battle. The media labeled Gerald the cunning developer who turned to crime. Nora's name occasionally appeared, but since she cut a deal, the public scorn was milder. She laid low, preparing to relocate out of town after the trial. Meanwhile, Jeremy tried to keep out of the spotlight, focusing on caring for Sadie. She was regaining her strength, her spirit unbroken. On a calm Sunday, Jeremy took Sadie to the local cemetery where his father was buried. They placed fresh flowers, standing in silence as a gentle breeze rustled the trees. Sadie whispered, "I hope he's proud we didn't let them take advantage of us." Jeremy squeezed her hand. "He would be. We overcame so much." They spoke quietly about the future. Sadie insisted that Jeremy consider living his own life beyond the turmoil, maybe find a stable love. He shrugged. "Time heals. Right now, I'm just happy you're safe." She gave him a wistful look, half smiling. "We're both free in a way, son. This is our chance to do something good with the blessing we almost lost." They left the cemetery feeling a renewed sense of peace and direction, like turning the final page of a painful chapter, eager to start anew. Chapter 12. Autumn leaves drifted around the courthouse steps as the day of Gerald's criminal trial arrived. A crowd gathered, more than before, drawn by the scandal of corruption, kidnapping, and intimidation. Local media vans lined the street, reporters setting up cameras. For Brentwood Falls, this was the biggest event since the lottery saga began. Inside the large courtroom, tension was electric. At the prosecution table, Detective Fuller sat near the DA, ready to present an avalanche of evidence. On the defense side, Gerald's high-priced lawyer, a new face replacing his old counsel, wore a confident smirk. But the strain in Gerald's eyes betrayed worry. Jeremy, Sadie, Margaret, Keith, Ellie, and other key witnesses found seats in the front rows. Nora was there too, seated separately, slated to testify under her immunity deal. She looked pale, almost trembling. This was her last chance to come clean fully. Prosecution. The DA described a calculated conspiracy by Gerald Burton, a wealthy developer who believed he could manipulate and intimidate to get what he wanted, culminating in the abduction of Sadie Haynes. The prosecutor laid out the chain of evidence, from phone records to the kidnapper's confessions, forged docs, and bribed witnesses. Defense. Gerald's counsel claimed innocence, calling the kidnappers rogue criminals, unaffiliated with Gerald, painting Nora as the real manipulator who tricked Gerald. "My client was scapegoated by a vengeful detective and a spurned ex-wife," the lawyer insisted. The judge, Honorary Carla Merrick, had a no-nonsense demeanor. She reminded the jury of the presumption of innocence, but also allowed the prosecution's thorough approach. She urged them to keep the kidnapping drama separate from the normal, more intangible, real estate corruption allegations. Focus on the facts, not rumors. One by one, the prosecution paraded witnesses. Harold Tobin, again testifying how Gerald's associates bribed him to commit perjury in the divorce case. He described the pressure and the hush money. Mel Brown, the private investigator, took the stand, offering a partial confession. In a plea bargain, he recounted phone calls from Gerald instructing him to handle the old lady situation, providing addresses, partial payment. The defense tried to discredit him as a liar seeking a deal, but the DA presented text messages from Mel's phone referencing GB's final instructions. Kidnappers who were arrested provided consistent accounts. "We were told to keep Sadie Haynes away until Jeremy caved in court. Payment was from a shell account. We never met Gerald face-to-face, but we recognized him from a photo the middleman showed us." One kidnapper recognized Gerald's voice from a phone call, claiming he said, "Make sure the old woman doesn't get to that hearing." This was the direct bombshell link. Nora approached the witness stand with shaky steps. She had a limited immunity arrangement, so she had to be fully truthful or lose the deal. The courtroom went silent. She hesitated, locking eyes briefly with Jeremy, who stared back impassively. She detailed how she fell under Gerald's sway, forging documents, conspiring to fabricate testimony about the lottery. She admitted personal wrongdoing. Then came the kidnapping aspect. "Gerald told me if Sadie is out of the picture, Jeremy will give up. He'll pay a ransom or concede the trial. I never explicitly heard him say kidnap, but he mentioned putting her away out of reach by any means." The defense hammered her, painting her as a bitter ex-wife seeking revenge. She sobbed. "I wish I was just bitter, but the truth is uglier. Gerald manipulated me. I let him, but I can't change what's done. This is the truth, under oath." Jeremy watched, conflicting emotions swirling. Sadie squeezed his hand gently. The jury seemed sympathetic to Nora's admission, though not blind to her complicity. She left the stand drained, tears streaking her cheeks. Gerald's high-priced lawyer tried to salvage the situation. They cross-examined each witness harshly, highlighting past lies, bribery deals, or self-serving immunity agreements. They insisted no direct evidence showed Gerald ordering kidnapping, only circumstantial references from subordinates. They proposed a theory that Nora might have orchestrated everything alone to extort Jeremy, but each time the prosecution presented digital footprints, phone records, and cross-verification. Gerald's alleged innocence seemed tenuous. The scandal of the kidnapping overshadowed smaller charges, but the sum total painted him as the mastermind. Margaret was called as a witness to confirm how Gerald tried bribing or intimidating her clients in the civil trial. She provided additional credibility to the pattern of intimidation. In a final gamble, the defense allowed Gerald to testify, hoping he'd charm or create doubt. He wore a polished suit, tried a calm facade. He denied any knowledge of kidnappings, pinned blame on an overzealous PI. "I never told him to harm Sadie Haynes," Gerald claimed. "I only said we needed more leverage to ensure a fair hearing." The prosecutor confronted him with recordings from jail, the notes telling subordinates to threaten or bribe. Gerald squirmed, calling them out of context. The judge repeatedly admonished him for evasive answers. The tension soared as the prosecutor cornered him. "Sir, do you deny sending text messages that read, 'Take her out. Make him beg. We have the phone logs.'" Gerald stammered. It was rhetorical. "I meant keep her busy. Not kidnapping." The jury's faces reflected skepticism. Gerald's composure cracked. A meltdown loomed. After days of intense testimony, the trial neared its end. The prosecution's closing argument hammered home Gerald's motive, to gain control of Sadie's lottery or force Jeremy to settle. And method, coercion, bribery, culminating in kidnapping. They labeled Gerald a puppeteer pulling criminal strings. The defense spun a final hail Mary, blaming Nora for forging docs, the PI for exceeding instructions, painting Gerald as ignorant. But the jury had seen and heard enough. Tension thickened as they retreated to deliberate. During the deliberation, Jeremy sat with Sadie outside on a courthouse bench. He was calmer than earlier trials, but the stakes were life or death for Gerald. Should he be convicted, it sealed justice for the kidnapping. Sadie gently told Jeremy, "Whatever they decide, we know the truth." The jury returned after a day of deliberation. The gallery hushed. The four-person rose. On conspiracy to commit kidnapping, guilty. On suborning perjury, guilty. On forgery related to the divorce case, guilty. The only partial acquittal was for a lesser real estate fraud charge, lacking enough direct evidence. But the major convictions stood. Gerald's face turned ashen. The judge thanked the jury, then scheduled a sentencing hearing in 2 weeks, denying bail once again. This was a crushing blow to Gerald's empire, reputation, and future. Nora sat in the back, tears of relief and sorrow. She escaped charges, but at a cost. Her life turned upside down, her relationship to the town severed. She nodded solemnly at Jeremy across the courtroom, uncertain if that was an apology or farewell. He gave no acknowledgement. 2 weeks later, a smaller crowd reconvened for Gerald's sentencing. The judge considered the gravity of kidnapping an elderly woman, plus other charges. The defense pleaded for leniency, citing no prior violent record, claiming the actual harm was minimal. The prosecutor hammered home the premeditated nature, the terror inflicted on Sadie, the repeated attempts to sabotage justice. Sadie wrote a victim impact statement, which Margaret read aloud at the hearing. "I feared for my life, was forcibly taken from my home, all because Mr. Burton believed his power and money let him disregard the law. That kind of disregard traumatizes not just me, but our whole town's sense of safety." The judge delivered a stern sentence: 15 to 20 years in prison, plus hefty fines and restitution. Gasps rippled, some calling it harsh, others cheering that it matched the severity of kidnapping. Gerald's face remained impassive, though his eyes betrayed shock. He was led away in chains, shouting vague threats. "You'll regret this, all of you." But no one showed him sympathy. Nora reached out to Margaret privately a week later. "I'm leaving Brentwood Falls. I've nothing left here. The DA says I won't be charged further, but I need a fresh start. Tell Jeremy I truly regret everything." Margaret nodded, uncertain if she'd pass the message. She recognized a final thread of redemption in Nora's eyes. Jeremy began fulfilling a dream, establishing a philanthropic foundation with Sadie. They used a portion of the lottery to endow scholarships for local youth, build a community center focusing on job training, and invest in small businesses. The negativity of the trial gave way to a quiet legacy of hope. Keith joined the foundation's board, along with Ellie, who served as the library liaison. The two's closeness blossomed into a gentle romance, the silver lining to the storm. Detective Fuller visited Sadie's cottage wearing a rare smile. "Guess you folks can finally breathe easy. The authorities might ask you to testify if Gerald appeals, but for now, we've got him behind bars." Sadie offered him iced tea, and they reminisced about the insane chain of events. Fuller parted with a warm handshake for Jeremy, remarking, "You fought the good fight, legally and morally." In a heartfelt moment, Jeremy took Sadie for a drive, out to the farmland that had belonged to their family for generations. The warm sunset painted golden light across the fields. He parked near an old oak tree, the breeze rustling leaves overhead. Jeremy, softly, "We overcame so much, Mom. The nightmares, the heartbreak. Now we stand free. If Dad were here," Sadie, voice trembling with emotion, "he'd say you handled yourself with integrity. That's all that truly matters." They sat quietly, hand in hand, gazing at the horizon, freed from the toxic marriage, from Gerald's threats, from the fear of losing their fortune. They felt not triumph, but gratitude. The entire ordeal reaffirmed their core values: love, loyalty, honesty. The lottery might have unleashed greed in some, but it also revealed the unwavering bond between mother and son. Post-credit scenes. Gerald, behind bars, tried appealing the verdict, but the evidence was overwhelming. He languished in prison, cursing the day he crossed paths with Sadie's ticket. Nora, in an unnamed city, lived humbly, working a normal job, forced to rebuild trust, with no illusions of easy wealth. She occasionally mailed a letter to Margaret, inquiring if Jeremy might ever forgive her. Ellie and Keith, now a couple, found purpose in the new community center. They guided local youth, taught them about the perils of greed, and championed small-town unity. Jeremy, stable and calm, continued his daily life, renovating his home, caring for Sadie, and overseeing foundation projects. The bitterness had melted away, replaced by a contentment in giving back. The final scene might show him standing by a newly unveiled Sadie Haynes Community Center, the crowd applauding, proud tears shining in Sadie's eyes.